Hi, welcome to the Heart of New York show. I am so excited today because I got my good friend and buddy back, Maestro Joseph Lento. I'm going to give you a quick bio on him because we got a lot to cover today. You're going to be so excited. You're going to be so filled of all what's going on with the school system and his music. It's going to be incredible. Maestro Joe Lento, he's a multi-winning educator celebrated by four, not one, not two, not three, but four United States presidents and two United States senators. In 1999, Joseph was named the New York City Department of Education Bronx County High School Teacher of the Year, and in 2014, President Obama named Joseph, that's Maestro Joseph, a National Teacher of Arts and Humanities. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome. Now, what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to just go over a little bit, and then I want you to take over and go through. We got some questions here.
Sure.
Because today's topic, let me tell you, it's very, very important. It's equity in education, okay, which is seemingly at the heart of almost every ongoing discussion related to education in the United States. It is a topic we believe people want to learn more about, so we've asked the maestro here to be our guest on today's show to bring an unbiased, okay, and factual analysis to this issue. This September, Joseph will begin his 38th year in education. Incredible. He has taught in numerous disciplines outside his express expertise in music, which have included teaching in various humanities, special education, and holding supervisor roles in New York City and Westchester County. Joseph is a former New York City Department of Education Bronx County High School's Teacher of the Year, as I stated earlier, and has received letters of commendations. Again, I want to state this because I'm so impressed, from Presidents Jimmy Carter, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, and in 2014, Joseph was named National Teacher of Arts and Humanities by President Obama. Welcome, brother.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm just so impressed. I don't want to waste a minute here. Okay, I want to get right into it's so good to have you here, but these people have to know what's going on, more so than us talking over coffee or something. So,
thank you.
What is it about the topic in equity in education that has people at odds?
Well, like most topics, people have some information. They don't have all the information. Maybe they have only the information they want to receive. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not getting the information. But what's at the heart of the topic is that there's a narrative that says our children are being discriminated against in different areas of the state and the city of New York. And, that's not exactly true. Our schools, our politicians, everyone's doing an outstanding job in supporting children in education, no matter where the demographic is. And on today's show, we're going to point out the enormous gains that have been made in New York City, around the state, and all that our politicians are doing for education in the state of New York. So this is not the typical narrative. The typical narrative is one set of kids has, another set of kids don't. When it comes to education, the system is set up very equitably, and we'll highlight that as we go along. Now, we might not be happy with all the results, but the system is in place to give every student what they need.
Excellent. I understand that schools in New York State are also grouped by regions. Are you familiar with how much each region spends per pupil on education, or is it the same for every region? If not, can you explain that?
Sure. Well, New York City is it's the second largest school system in the entire nation. At any point, there's between 3 and 4 million students, over 200,000 teachers. That doesn't count supervisors and other staff. There are over 5,000 school buildings and probably close to 1,000 school districts in the state. For the purpose of how the budget and so on is they work that out. New York State's divided into different regions. Western New York, Central New York, Lower Hudson Valley, New York City, Long Island, Mohawk Valley. And during the last census, New York City and New York State, actually New York State, spent double the national average per pupil at nearly $25,000. The average, national average is about $12,500. Now, while it's true, some students in different parts of the state have a different student expenditure. Let's say students in the Mohawk Valley, they're getting 24, or what the census said, $25,000 a year, but someplace in Long Island is $32,000. That's simply based on economics. Where it costs more to live, teachers are paid more. It has nothing to do with the dearth, or lack of programs and classes. Those all come down from the state, and every school that has its doors open has to have all those programs and courses and qualified teachers in order to teach children.
That is something. That is something. We're going to go quickly through this because I want to make sure we get all these questions answered. Is there ever a time when per students expenditures decrease? For instance, what if schools lose enrollment?
That's a very good question, and the simple answer is, it never goes down. The price of student expenditures doesn't go down. Recently, I think as recent as May, the gentleman, Mr. Lowry, who is one of the spokespeople for the New York State School District Administrators Association, said point blank, while enrollment is going down, we still have expenses. You have to keep the schools open. You have to pay the teachers. So, in fact, the cost per student never goes down. That's just an economic. You have a business. You're running a business. It costs money to run a business. So the schools remain funded, and the funding never decreases. Not based on any statistics I've researched, and going back as far as 2012 alone. The infusion of money is wonderful for the kids.
That is something. Why aren't we hearing this type of positive information? We're hearing so much negative. Why?
Peter, that's a great question also. I'm an educator. I don't take sides. Whatever I think privately, I think privately. My role is to be unbiased and to talk about facts. Even if I don't like the facts, if they're factual, they have to be told. And I think what happens is people get wrapped up in their partisanship and don't get wrapped up in the facts. But these facts, whether it's per student spending, does every child have access to the programs, are there qualified teachers, all of these things are verifiable right through our very own state, whether it's the State Controller's Office, the State Department of Education, the Governor's Office, your local school district. All these things are verifiable. Why they don't want to talk about it, that's for other people to discuss. But for me, I want people to know that the narrative shouldn't be inflammatory. It shouldn't be void of the facts. It should have all the information we need so we can better serve our kids. That's our responsibility.
So in other words, when you're saying to me that you're unbiased, that means that you're unpolitical.
Yeah, when it comes...
Because all this sounds political to me, and everyone out there that's looking, they're saying, well, wait a minute, this is all, listen to this school district, that school district, it's all politics. Who's making money, who's losing money?
Yeah, I've had...
What's the story here, brother?
Unfortunately, I've had numerous people contact me when I posted that the show, we were going to do the show, and I mentioned some of the topics, and people, very high-ranking people in various school districts throughout the state contacted me and said, basically, you don't know what you're talking about. And when I pointed out to them and gave them the budget, it comes straight from the Controller's Office. It comes from the Congressional Budget Office, comes from the Governor's Office, comes from your school district. And I pointed out the money that's spent and the rate of success in the school districts that people say are not being successful is not only untrue, but it's putting down the kids and the teachers in those districts who are doing phenomenal work. So unfortunately, even in my own profession, people are not informed. And when you give them the facts, my experience has been they don't engage in a, wow, I didn't know that, I'm glad to hear that. They, hunker down on their politics, and that doesn't serve kids. Never serves kids.
Well, these people that are listening that have said Joe doesn't know what he's talking about, you are more than welcome to come on this show with Joseph Lento, and we could discuss the facts of this, okay? Because what we're dealing with here is the future. Our kids, the kids out there that need and want a great education to make this country continue to be what it is. Great. Joe, that's what we're looking for here, right?
Absolutely. And, I spent the vast majority of what soon will be my 38th year servicing, minority and socioeconomically challenged communities. I know I came from one. I know the story. I come from a broken home. I didn't have much growing up. So I know the story. I was in it. I'm not just talking from some ivory tower. The experience I have comes from my own personal experience. And when I had a chance to teach at performing arts out of college, I didn't. I went back and taught where I grew up because that's what I wanted to do. And that's what's important. So when I hear fighting and the politicization of this topic, it bothers me because we're here to serve kids. And if you can't serve kids, then you don't belong being in the business.
Exactly, and that's what it's all about. Now, could you give us like some data on how the school districts are funded? Because most people believe that each community supports their school district completely through property taxes, therefore giving the image that there is a large disparity in the money each school district has to spend. Is this true?
No, it's absolutely false, and that's what people don't understand. We have a system in New York State, and I'm going to continue. I'll thank the governor. I'll thank the head of the Senate, the Assembly, the Commissioner of Education. They oversee a very strict system of rules that, one, gives the right amount of money to the kids and oversees a curriculum that's fair for everyone. And also the teachers. They're implementing this curriculum. The teachers' unions, whether you agree or disagree, these are all advocates for kids. All of them, every one of them. And the biggest talking point to cause division is, well, you live in Syosset, so your kids get $32,000 a year, but the kids in Central New York get $26,000, or in Buffalo. Well, again, it comes back to a couple of things. What are the economics? There's not one collective bargaining agreement that teachers have that's not wrapped around the economy of the region they live in, that they work in. It's that simple. So because property taxes might be higher in Seaford or in Dobbs Ferry or Ardsley, it doesn't mean they get to spend more on their schools. As a matter of fact, there's what's known as the Big Five school districts. It includes Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Yonkers. It's always more than five. They still call it the Big Five. Mount Vernon. These schools are the schools districts that are targeted as, challenged, which bothers me because I know the kids in those school districts. They're great kids. You put the name challenged on them. They're great kids. They succeed. They get actually double the amount of state aid that other school districts do. I'll break that down more clearly. So the formula is simple. You have a school district, whatever town it is, city it is. That city, town, they can only contribute between 45% of their property taxes go to their schools. Not 100% of their taxes, 40 to 45%, and in most so-called wealthier districts, they're only, the state is only putting in 32% when the state is supposed to kick in the other 45%. So there's a lot of disparity there that's not spoken about. Then the government kicks in the other 8 to 10%. So let's say it's essentially 45 from the locality, 45 from the state, and then 10% from the federal government. That's the breakdown, whether you like it or not. That's the way it works.
Absolutely incredible.
Most people don't know that. Because I read something the other day, someone said, we're the only country in the world that uses real estate taxes to fully support its schools. That's nonsense. If you look at the Lincoln Land Project, which is a progressive think tank in Cambridge, Massachusetts, one of their recent studies shows that with the exception of maybe 12 to 18 countries in Asia, every other industrialized nation in the world uses the same formula we do, or something very close to that. So, we're under the impression, wow, well, in Spain, they completely pay for every student's education from the government. No, it's the same breakdown here.
So what's the problem here?
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Wanton ignorance. It's as simple
Ignorance
as that.
on how it's just put out to each school, distributed and all that?
Yeah, I mean, these are facts. If I can find them, people with much more intelligence than I
Where's the money
have can
going
find
then?
it. The money is going to where it's supposed to go. It's going into the schools.
Right.
Every dime of the money goes into the schools. And let's face it, when we say student expenditures, let's not sugarcoat it. This is a business. It means, what am I paying my teachers? What am I paying my administrators, my bus drivers, food service people, healthcare workers? So this is a business. These are professionals. They're entitled to make a good living. So
that's
I have no
something.
problem. Student expenditure means, what does it cost to run your school district? And every one of the people who work in those school districts are darn good, and they deserve every penny they get, and I fully support them.
Excellent, excellent. So is there a safeguard on spending? And we see that a sizable amount of money is being spent per student. So where exactly does this money go and why?
Well, great, Peter, thank you. There is a safeguard. There are a few safeguards, not only in the spending, but in the curriculum and how it's doled out, or rolled out, rather. There's something called the property tax cap, and state law says that no locality can increase their, by more than 2% each year what they give to their schools. So if somebody wants, somebody thinks, well, I live in Sayville, so we want this and that, so let's raise our property taxes, we can afford it, and we'll pay it. And I'm not sure if I use the best place, it's a great place, there's so many others. You just cannot tax yourself. It doesn't work that way, so you can have everything. School districts that have a higher expenditure, you often don't see what those costs are. Every student in New York State, in the nation, is entitled to a fair and equitable education. This, certainly with our special needs community, is something that people don't see. So someone might say, well, in Scarsdale, you're spending $32,000, so you must have pools and tennis courts and this and that, and they very well might. But that's not where their money's going. A lot of the money goes to educate students with special needs. That includes having to usually send these children to school districts or other approved facilities that can properly educate them. The cost can be double or triple what it costs to educate a student who doesn't have those needs. Transportation. So when you look at this difference, one, it's a regional economic difference, and two, smaller school districts, so-called wealthier ones, also have a lot of special needs kids that they're paying for. They have to, and they should. So they just can't tax themselves by will into having a great system. I think all our districts are great. How's that?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I think they're all great.
And it's wonderful that the funding going for special needs, because they most of them really want to excel in education.
Absolutely. For years and years, there's been a Board of Cooperative Education Services, better known as BOCES, the acronym, where there's lots of wonderful alternative programs for students who don't fit a particular niche, and they can go and study this and study that. And if you have additional special needs, now, for instance, in our Big Five school districts, they have inordinate numbers of children with what they call, exceptional special needs. And one of the reasons is because our big cities, believe it or not, do a great job at educating children with exceptional needs. So if Buffalo has 80 or 90% of children who have exceptional needs, it's because they do a really great job at it. It's not because they're dumped on. It's because they're doing great things. When Yonkers or Mount Vernon, because they're doing great things with those children, not because they're being dumped on. And that's it's like it's a burden. It's not a burden to teach those children. I know I have. No educator thinks it's a burden. But the narrative wants to make it look like it's something bad. It's not something bad. The fact that Buffalo educates 87% of children with extraordinary needs is a great thing because they're doing a great job. Buffalo's at the top of the list for that.
That is something. We also hear a lot of talk about the New York State curriculum not being offered in all school districts. Is that true?
It's complete nonsense. We are a state and a nation of laws. And, again, whether you agree with a particular party or not, that's your business. But in New York State, I can't think of one person from the governor to the secretary of the commissioner of education to our state and Senate leaders they are tremendous advocates of children. They would not allow a formula in place that said, well, if you work in Mount Vernon, you're not going to have Algebra 1 in the 9th grade. Sorry, it's because you're a minority, you're not getting it. No, every student has access. There's a curriculum from pre-K all the way up. There are benchmarks at every grade level. In the high school, you must have 22 credits, and they fall into various categories. Those courses are available at each and every school by state-certified, qualified, excellent educators.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Earlier, Joseph, you mentioned that many economically challenged and minority students are succeeding in other school settings, yet come from the exact backgrounds of students who many people are saying are failing. What's going on? What do you mean by that?
Well, again, either people are invested in really helping kids, which means finding out what's going on with those kids and educating them. And I don't need anyone from the government or any place else to tell me how to educate my kids when they're in the room with me. We all know what we're doing in those classrooms, and we work hard at it. So the narrative is that the minority community doesn't succeed. Again, it bothers me, and there are recent records to show it's absolutely not true and supports my contention. But there are other school settings. For instance, the Archdiocese of New York State, New York City, which I have to say I'm now proud to be a member of again.
Congratulations.
And I want to thank, may I thank my fellow workers? Just want to say thank you to everyone at Marie Regina High School. You're wonderful, and God bless all of you. There was a study done by the New York State Department of Education as far back as 1993, the State Department of Education, which analyzed similarly situated, economically challenged and minority students in New York City, juxtaposed to the ones who were in the Archdiocese high schools, and also in elementary school, K through 12. K through 12, K through 8, especially K through 6, every benchmark, math, reading, social studies, so on and so forth, the students were achieving at a higher rate than their counterparts. And I'm not putting down the teachers who were in those schools in New York City. They're doing a great job. It's just that to say that everyone is failing who comes from a particular group is not right. And the students who attend the Archdiocese high schools go on with a 99% rate of graduation and similar statistics through college. Kids are being educated, publicly, privately. We need to hear more of that. Our teachers, public and private, are doing phenomenal work under extraordinary circumstances. They don't need inflammatory narratives.
It's so interesting what you're saying. Now, we're at the end, and so I'd like you, in a couple of minutes, can you wrap up the most important thing, how this can become better, and what needs to be done for, and or corrected, and people out there that are doubting, like I said, the invitation is an open one to come on the show, and we'll go over the facts to prove
We've got them all.
we got them all right here to prove that Joe. So the invitation is open. Just let us know. But Joe, can you wrap it up in a couple of minutes on just what you think that they really need to hear, that they're going to go home with, and hopefully start the process of change?
Sure. So, two quick things. Well, one quick thing is, we didn't touch on this, is my fault. There's no such thing as a school district buying better teachers. We all come out of the state education department licensed the same exact way. It's not like a football or baseball draft. You're not ranked by your ability, you're ranked by your license and whether or not you pass the criteria for your subject area. So a student in Brownsville, a teacher in Brownsville, Brooklyn, is eminently as qualified, if not more, than someone in Edgemont, New York. So you can't buy better teachers. And no one's traveling from central New York to, another school district 6 hours a day to make $10,000 more. It doesn't work that way. So teachers, you're doing great, all of you. What is the takeaway on this for me? I want people to know that as educators, our only responsibility are facts and to nurture kids who need help from us. If people want to politicize this, and for those in education who do, shame on you. You shouldn't talk about things that are not factual when they will harm our children. Children hear this. I don't want the kids in those areas to anymore hear that they're not being treated fairly or they're not getting the right money. This affects the way they think. And it really hurts me for them because we're doing them a disservice. And I do welcome anyone to come on the show and refute the facts that we have here that we've only touched on.
I agree 100%, and I hope you do. I hope you do. Joe, what's that high school you're affiliated with, the Catholic one?
I'm now teaching at Maria Regina High School in Hartsdale, and it's the most wonderful place. The principal, the president, the assistant principal, my colleagues, they're just incredible. They've welcomed me with open arms. Thank you so much.
I heard so many good things about you. I'd like to come by that school and say hi sometime because of my maestro right here. Thank you all so much for watching. Take to heart what was said today. I hope you got a lot from it. We'll see you next time.